Well, it was a fantastic achievement, wasn't it? One of the things for Doncaster Rovers winning promotion to League One last season. One of the things I've really liked about Grant McCann's teams at Doncaster is their ability to really come on strong at the business end of the season when it really matters. And I think they did that in the 23-24 campaign, where they were 20th actually after an injury ravaged season at that point, with some quality loans in January helping them get to was it fifth in the end, thanks to this incredible, I think it was a 10-game winning streak at the back end of that season, and then they did lose in the playoff semi-final to Crewe Alexandra. But then I think the following season even, it was a very low bar, relatively speaking, for automatic promotion. Doncaster Rovers getting in with 78 points. And I think that what really stood out to me was Doncaster Rovers' ability to just grind out results consistently, where other teams around them dropped points, and them and Port Vale were fantastic at the business end of the season, and they sort of peaked at the right time. And Doncaster certainly didn't lose many games, which I think is very underrated. I think if you're consistently ticking out points, that can make a huge difference. And they're a very athletic side who can be very efficient in transition. I'd almost think of them as modelled like a League Two equivalent of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool in terms of, like I mentioned, that athleticism and that energy and some of the directness of their play. What I'm really curious about is how that translates to League One, because you could look at it and say, there wasn't a huge amount of technical creativity in that Doncaster Rovers side. In fact, they even relied, from a ball playing perspective, sometimes on people like Joseph Olowu, who has since moved to Stockport County, and he was a centre half, or still is, I believe. But I think so. On the one hand, I think they probably needed to add that extra level of quality that's appropriate for League One. But I also think they have more opportunities to hit teams on transition, and they'll get more of that in League One than they maybe had in League Two, where teams like Bromley were able to do a job on them by parking the bus. So a really intriguing season ahead for Doncaster Rovers, but quite an exciting one as well. Plenty to get stuck into with Grant McCann's side in this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. If you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Daniel Pearson from 18 Dapper on YouTube and social media. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. How excited are you about Doncaster Rovers' return to English football's third tier?
Thanks for having us on again, Gabe. Really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it was high praise in the intro, linking us with Liverpool.
I did say League Two Liverpool, Daniel.
We've been called the League Two Arsenal before, so we'll take it for sure. But no, I think you're right in terms of teams are going to come at us a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to kind of more open games than what we saw last season. And I think we do have a squad that's capable of taking that next step. There was clear gaps that needed addressing. I think we've started to kind of plug those holes a little bit. But yeah, the step up, you tend to find kind of a little bit more time and space on the ball compared to League Two, where kind of more technical players tend to get kicked. It is getting better down at League Two in terms of standard. But I'm just hoping that kind of the fringe players that we've not really seen much of in League Two, like Ben Close, Zane Westbrook, they might kind of slot into League One a little bit better than what they did in League Two. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting one for sure, because it's a very tough division.
Talk to me about the ownership situation at the club, Daniel, because there's a feeling, I think it was Blunt, the one that left, and there's a feeling that since then, people like Terry Bramall, I think, had been kind of conflated with some of the issues from the previous era when things felt chaotic in the early 2020s. But actually, it's possible that Blunt leaving has helped people like Terry Bramall and other, maybe Baldwin perhaps as well, Kevin Baldwin, settle things down and run the club in a slightly better way.
Yeah, everything's looking a little bit more positive on and off the field. The training ground's getting improvements at the minute. We've been screaming and shouting for a better tannoy system in the stadium. I believe that's getting improvements done in the close season as well. So the investment's
Hopefully,
there.
you'll need the tannoy system to shout the goals out, Daniel, next
I'm
season.
hoping so. But yeah, it seems like Terry's taken a much more hands-on role since David left, and I think we've got to praise him to a certain extent for the fact that he's come in and looked at what needs to be done. He's listened to Grant McCann in terms of his not so much demands, but his wishes for a budget and what he's wanting the squad to look like, and they've backed him, Terry and Gavin. But in the previous regime, when David was kind of in charge of the finances, I think they trusted him to ask for money when we needed it, and he was looking for more the break-even kind of sustainable football club model, which sometimes, if you try to be sustainable in football and break even, you're going to move backwards. You've got to invest to progress. But I'm not sure how it works. I think for every pound Terry put in, David might have had to put in as a joint ownership. So I think he was looking after his own pocket to a certain extent, which was had a negative impact to the club as a whole, both on and off and on the field. So you can kind of put a little bit of that blame onto Terry for not really kind of being as involved as the owner, and trusting it to somebody. But since David's gone, no problems with the ownership and kind of how involved Terry's been and the finances that he's delivered. Because I think we had quite a good budget last year, recruited well, and then like I say, the stuff that's happening off the field this summer, it's not a quick job to get planning permission for training grounds and stuff. So I think this has been in the pipeline for a number of months. But yeah, since Terry's kind of taken full hold of the reins, the club's progressed in the right way.
Grant McCann, Daniel, made no secret of the fact that he's an ambitious manager when he returned to Doncaster Rovers, and he almost hinted in his first interview that, look, if I'm successful here, I may take, sort of almost intimated that he may look at the next step. But what I'm kind of quite intrigued by is that even though his stock has risen, not that his stock wasn't high in the first place, but he's done some fantastic work at Doncaster Rovers. He has stayed. It does look like he's going to start this coming season as manager, fingers crossed. Is that an indication that he's happy with how things are behind the scenes and that the club is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think as a football manager, you've got to trust and have a good relationship with the people that are above you. And I think if you don't have that, it makes your job harder than what it needs to be. And Grant's done it before. Like you say, fingers crossed he is going to be our manager come the start of the season. There's nothing that says to me that he won't be. But
Hull have made their appointments, so
but when he moved to Hull last time, there was no indication that he was going to move until it happened. So football's a very fickle sport, and things can change every hour, can't they? So yeah, we'll see. But I'm hoping that relationship with Terry and Gavin is a key point for keeping him here. They've backed him. He's brought a lot of his own players in, and I can't see why he would move on other than for financial reasons, or like you say, to move to ply his trade at the highest possible level. But I think we're a club going in the right direction, and if he stays, he can kind of spearhead that.
Yeah, I think he's a very ambitious and driven manager. So I don't think Grant McCann's coming into League One to make up the numbers and finish 18th. I think he will be looking to try and compete as high as possible. Like
Snap your hand off for 18th though, Gav.
I know. I think the fan base would, but I think Grant McCann is probably going to set his sights quite high. I would imagine. So we'll see. In terms of the recruitment side, I wanted to get a feel for. Obviously, you're not, internally in the club, Daniel, so you might not know. But I'm wondering, in terms of the recruitment setup, do you imagine a lot of it's going to be taken on by Grant McCann, and he's going to be handed a lot of autonomy, or are there people sort of behind the scenes who will take on some of the baton?
As far as I'm aware, I think it's quite a big team effort. I know Cops was part of the recruitment team, but I think he's moved on to coaching now. There's been a restructure, so I'm not sure who fits where now. But they have had I think the coaches kind of compile a list of players that kind of a wish list, and then it's a case of scouting those players, seeing who best fits into the squad and kind of the whole team dynamic. But yeah, I think Grant will probably have the final say on who he's wanting to go for. But then it's a case of putting that towards Terry and Gav with kind of fees involved and stuff like that. And if the budget will stretch to it, and kind of explaining why we need. I mean, we've got 4 keepers now, and they've trusted that that's the best kind of setup, so that we've got 2 keepers fighting for the number 1 spot. The 3rd choice keeper would go out on loan, and then the 4th choice keeper is kind of in and around the squad on a match day, supporting the 2 keepers fighting it out, so that they gain that experience of kind of what it is like fighting for the number 1 shirt. So I think that's something they've kind of put that case to Terry and Gavin. And in the past, David might have said, no, we're going to have 2 keepers. So the fact that they can explain why they're wanting to do something, why they want the squad to look a certain way, and Terry and Gavin are on board and provide that budget. So yeah, I think, like I say, I think Grant as the overall say at the end, but I think it is a team effort in terms of getting the numbers in each position and the reasons why.
And just finally on Grant McCann before we look at the squad, Daniel, how would you kind of summarise the impact he's had on Doncaster Rovers since he's returned, and how he's been able to deliver these results at a club that, let's not forget, beforehand had major issues, relegation in 2022, was it 17th or something in 2023? So clearly there'd been a decline leading up to his appointment, and he's turned things around entirely.
Yeah, the pattern was in a downward spiral, wasn't it? We kind of we missed out on playoffs, I think, under Darren Moore, and then from there it was just kind of regression every season.
Well, Darren Moore went to Sheffield Wednesday, or was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's one season you had under Moore. I think it was the season that ended up getting postponed for COVID, where you finished about 9th, didn't you? And then the following season, Moore, you're around there, and then Moore left for Sheffield Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and then he got replaced by Butler.
Andy Butler.
Then we had Danny Schofield in there, Gary McSheffrey as well. So managers that weren't really kind of experienced at the level, and it showed. We didn't have the budget to support them with the players as well, and that kind of coupled together just meant worse and worse performances. But Grant had a big job turning us around, and he had a tough job in the first season, like you mentioned in the intro, that it was a injury ravaged first half to the season. But then the key loans, the recruitment in the winter, key players coming back from injury, we went on that really good run. And I think he just gets it. He gets what we need to do to get results. And like you say, it's not always winning games. It's about kind of getting points and just chipping away, and seeing where we are at the end of the 46 games. But from last season after last, he's added a few key players, really got a balanced squad, and I think we were just really consistent last season. Like I say, it was a pretty low bar in League Two. If you look back at recent seasons, teams dropping points left, right, and centre. It was everybody was taking points off of everybody else. But I think our consistency just kind of just showed at the end, and that's all driven from Grant McCann. After getting beat in the playoffs, as soon as the game was finished, his post-match press conference was basically, if you're not wanting to win this division, don't come back. And I think that determination and that drive and that sort of mentality will pass on to the players. And I think we've seen how close-knit that group of players are, especially after winning promotion and the championship. They were out around town, drinking everybody under the table. And by the looks of it, they've all been on holiday pretty much all the summer together as well. So
I think because that was the same weekend that because Bradford City got promoted that same season. Well, you celebrated the title the same day as Bradford City got promoted. So I imagine in Yorkshire there would have been a few people having 6 days the day after.
Yeah, more indeed. But no, it just shows how kind of close knit the squad are, and I think they just fight for each other. But it all comes from the coaching staff, Grant McCann and his team around him. And if nobody's pulling in the right direction, he's pretty ruthless in getting rid.
Absolutely, certainly hasn't been that the case this year, which is testament to the work he's done to establish a group of players he can move forward with after last season's success. With that in mind, Daniel, you mentioned those 4 goalkeepers. I think Timothy Lototala is going to be start the season as the number 1. I would argue that he's actually an upgrade on Teddy Sharman-Lowe. Is that? But that seems to be quite a common view in the fan base. Is that one that you would share?
Yeah, I mean the fan base wanted Timmy back last season after his 6 months with us the previous season, but he got an injury in pre-season. I think that he was looking at to go out on loan, maybe not to Doncaster, but he was looking at to go out on loan. And then he did go out on loan in January to Crawley, I think it was. Got 1 game in League One, and then got recalled back to Hull. So he's had a bit of a difficult season in terms of kind of getting game time and staking his claim for a place at Hull. So yeah, I think a season in League One, it'd be great to get him on a permanent because he's got potential to be a really, really good keeper. As does Teddy. I really liked Teddy last season. He got quite a lot of negative feedback from fans sometimes in terms of his stats and his numbers, but I don't think the players in front of him were particularly helping at times. And I think Teddy will be a really good keeper. I think a season with Bolton will give him a different kind of setup, a different environment, and I think that'll help him develop. But in terms of us, I do think Timmy is probably a step ahead of Teddy in terms of development at the minute. So
certainly on corrigibility, we can say. I think, yeah.
I think if I have both in front of me and you ask me to pick one, I'd go with Lototala over Sharman-Lowe at the minute.
Yeah, well, I think it's wonderful news that you've got him back, and I think he's overdue a prolonged stint in League One. So really exciting to see how he. And that's permanent, isn't it, Lototala?
No, season long loan.
Oh, season long loan. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I hope it's a permanent in the future for sure.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. Ian Lawler, then, pretty reliable experience backup, I would think.
Yeah, and I was watching one of the videos on the Rovers YouTube channel. It was with Kyle, the goalkeeper coach, and he had really positive things to say about Lawler because obviously he's not got the game time last season. Teddy played every game, I think it was, but apparently he's in the best shape that he's been in a long time. Although he's not playing regular football, he seems quite happy to push younger keepers and support them, but be there ready to step in and be kind of match fit and ready to go should he be needed. And I think that's what you need from a more experienced keeper. I think being able to understand that you're not going to get game time and not really throw the toys out of the pram and make the place a difficult place to work in. I think if it's a bit of a goalkeepers union, isn't it? You try and support each other and protect each other, and you just want people to do well. And if you've got a group of players that are happy to see other people succeeding, but also support them in that success, then it's a good recipe for a positive training ground.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be a key part of that goalkeepers union, Ian Lawler. Jake Oram and Bryant's another name. Oram's the name who kind of rings a bell with me. I'm sure. I'm just wondering, is he the one that the club think have some potential, or do they see a lot of potential in them both? I don't know. Difficult for you to say, I suppose, because you've not seen.
So that same video that I just mentioned, it was talking about the 2 younger keepers, and there's a hope that at least one or both of them do break into the first team in the coming years. I think Jake will be the one that will go out on loan to get match experience this year, because he was in and around the squad last season. So I think he's had that year of kind of learning from going to away games and being within the squad. So now I think it's his time to go out and actually play games. Whereas the 4th keeper, his name escapes me.
Bryant.
So yeah, I think he'll be the one that kind of helps with the kind of pre-match warm-up and just be part of the squad and kind of learn that side of the game this season and probably go out on loan next year.
Yeah, sort of alternate, if you like, playing versus being on the periphery. So in terms of right, I think the good thing at the moment is we know what the formation's going to be. It's probably going to be 4-2-3-1. We know Grant McCann has liked 4-3-3 previously in his career, but it'll be something. It'll be one of those, possibly 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
In terms of the right back, Jamie Sterry, he's on my mind.
Yeah, he just gets stronger every single game. Last season, he just progressed and improved as the season went on. It showed he got an injury that kept him out for a couple of weeks, and I don't think it was any sort of surprise that when he came back, our form was a lot more consistent. The partnership that he has with Molyneux in front of him, you can't. Well, I'm going to say you can't buy that. I don't think you can. I think because they play with each other alongside each other for so much of the career, it's almost telepathic what they're going to do. And yeah, I think them two on that right hand side, they'll cause problems. And Jamie Sterry, I think defensively is solid enough. His passing range, his vision is decent.
I love that he can get into it. He can sort of ghost into the box as well, can't he? At the back post.
Yeah, he's popped up with a few goals as well, so that's always nice.
Yeah, for sure. So Jamie Sterry, I'm pleased for Jamie Sterry to get a chance in League One because it's felt like he's been one of the best right backs in League Two for I want to say 4 years now, maybe. And
yeah, he did well at Hartlepool, didn't he? Before they went down, and then came to Donny, and he's been all right for us as well. He's been really one of the more positive players. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him and a well-deserved one to be playing at League One.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. Tom Nixon, Dan, do you think he's going to be up to stepping in if Sterry got injured or suspended, or do you think the club might be looking at bringing another right back?
I've heard rumour that we are looking at another right back, but I think Nixon's more than capable of being a backup for Sterry. Came in, he's got plenty of energy. Defensively as well, I think he's solid enough. There's certain times where he got found out a little bit, but that might be because of the lack of games that he was playing. I think for me, the squad at the minute, I think we've just got to kind of give them an opportunity to show if they are capable at this level. And kind of for me, the primary objective this season is to retain League One status. If there is an opportunity to push further on, then you've got to grab it with both hands. But it'd be nice to kind of judge the squad's ability at this level, and then start to kind of look at real kind of areas of improvement in January or the summer. So I think for now, as long as we've got 2 players capable of playing each position, I think that's probably a good starting point. And for me, it's about trusting the squad that has got us promotion, and hopefully they can build on that momentum and ride that crest of a wave as it is, and really see if they are capable of making that step up.
Yeah, you don't want to disrupt the synergy of the group that's done so well this last season. But you have brought in Matty Pearson, which I think is an excellent acquisition because not only has he got that higher league experience, he certainly played in the Championship with Huddersfield Town and Luton, I think, as well. But he's also kind of been on a similar path to Doncaster Rovers in terms of his experience in the lower leagues and working his way up from his time at Accrington Stanley earlier in his career. You must be delighted with that acquisition.
For me, Gabby, he's probably our best signing this summer, purely because we've lost a lot of experience in that area with Richard Wood and Tom Anderson both leaving. One's retired, and then Anderson decided not to extend his contract and he's gone to Shrewsbury. Probably guaranteed more games at Shrewsbury and wanted a new challenge, which completely get. He was our longest serving player, and sometimes a change is as good as a rest. But yeah, by losing those 2 players, we're seriously lacking any sort of experience in there. Having Jay McGrath, Bobby Faulkner. So I think Matty Pearson coming in will be able to really guide those players on and off the field, and be able to kind of do what Richard Wood was doing, shepherding the defence, just being an organiser, and being able to kind of walk players through a game and leaning on that experience that he's got from lower league level and at higher level as well, and just kind of helping the other guys around him.
I totally agree, and I think he's probably at a more physically capable stage in his career than Richard Wood is as well. So
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
someone's got to say it. No, good luck to Woody at Rotherham as a coach.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Bobby Faulkner, and I almost wonder if the winning promotion almost goes against him, because he's felt like he's a talented player at the club who's recognised as having a lot of potential, but he's had a lot of loans so far, and I think he's had to be very patient in terms of waiting his opportunity. And in different circumstances, you'd have thought maybe this year could be the year he could do a Jay McGrath or get very close to. But then stepping up to League One, that's another bit of a hurdle for him to overcome. So again, is patience going to be the order of the day for Faulkner?
I think it is, yeah. I think probably unless somebody else comes in, I think the starting two centre backs will be Matty Pearson and Jay McGrath. And Bobby he'll have to be patient, or he'll have to show something in training that makes the coaching team think he's worthy of a place. There's obviously the cup competitions. They're a good opportunity to kind of mix it up a little bit and see what they're about. But there's definitely a player in Bobby. There's potential there. Like I say, I think promotion probably has gone against him. I think if we're still in League Two, I'd be saying that there's a real opportunity there for him to break into the team. League One, maybe it's a step too far this soon in his career, and it might be a case of getting him out on loan to a League Two club, even if it's a short-term loan, just to kind of get him some game time at professional football level.
Maybe the National League, perhaps, or somewhere that kind of level. So in terms of left back, that's an area that I think there's potential to strengthen in. Maxwell's obviously a very tenacious left back who can swing in a good cross, and you've got Senior in the mix as well. He's another senior option. But I know, awful. But I do feel like left back's probably the area where you'd think, you'd want somebody who can just elevate the first 11.
Yeah, I mean Maxwell is capable. Is a good player, but there's been injury problems and a few issues there over the last couple of seasons where he's ended up dropping out of the team because of injury, and Senior's come in. Again, I'd probably put Senior at the same sort of level as Nixon, and I'd like to see if he is capable of making that step up to League One. But yeah, I think out of the back four, probably left back is kind of the area that I'd agree with you is probably the one which needs strengthening the most. But I'm one of those. I want to reward or see the players rewarded for the efforts last season, and if they're not quite good enough, hopefully they're good enough to keep us out of that bottom four. But just kind of give them that opportunity to say, well done, you got us promoted. You as a squad, you were fantastic last season. Let's see what you can do in League One.
I mean, I kind of agree with you in one sense, and I like the idea of rewarding people who have done well for the club. But these players haven't done it voluntarily. Like, they have been paid to get results for Doncaster Rovers, and you can be extremely grateful for what they did last season, while still feeling like there's certain areas that you can bring in better players. Because I think the club has to think like that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
In terms of central midfield, Owen Bailey, I would like, one of the reasons I would like maybe another centre half to come in is because I think Owen Bailey's best in central midfield. I think he can be a really key influence in that position, and he's quite unique in terms of his importance and influence. So yeah, I would like a squad depth that allows Owen Bailey to stay in central midfield and not have to drop into central defence, just because I think he can be really influential there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Completely agree. He has covered at centre back, and he does all right. He does a job there, but he's one of those players that's very versatile, and I think every club needs one or two of those that you can slot here, there, and everywhere. But his primary position in the midfield, we need to keep him there if possible. So yeah, I think another centre back, even if it's a loanee, just to kind of cover that and give us a bit of depth in there, just so that Owen can be in the centre of midfield and really kind of influence the game from the area that is best at. I think we do need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that just the way he sort of shields the defence and keeps things ticking over. He's a real metronomic influence, isn't he, Owen Bailey?
Yeah, and you mentioned in the intro about kind of working on transitions and probably having more opportunities to turn a team back against their own goal. He's pivotal in that. If he wins a ball in that kind of defensive third, it can find the ball through and get us on the attack. So yeah, I do think it is key that he's in the right area.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm really curious about is if it is a 4-2-3-1 rather than a 4-3-3 next season, who's going to be the partner for Owen Bailey, and is that player currently in the building? I was a little bit surprised to hear you say that you think Ben Close and Zane Westbrook are going to be in the conversation for the squad this season, because I felt from the outside that they're both of them, their best form is quite a long time ago. For Westbrook, you would probably say it was the 1920 season with Coventry City, where he was excellent for them under Mark Robbins. Since then, he's had injuries and not done as much as he would have liked. Similar sort of time scale, really, for Ben Close, I would say. I've felt like he struggled to find that kind of consistency in his career over the last half decade as well. So I don't know whether they would be people that I would be having in my best 11 for the step up to League One.
Yeah, I could be miles off it, to be fair, Gab. I'm trying to think of a reason why we'd be keeping them in the building and in the squad. We offered them contracts last summer, and it was a question mark for a lot of fans. And then both players didn't really feature all last season. And maybe it's just the experience to support the younger lads, and that's kind of their role now within the squad, that they're in and around training and help kind of guide the younger players. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking that there's a little bit more time on the ball where your more creative players can have that bit of space, and Ben Close is probably one of those players. If he plays, that'll be kind of a wait and see. But I think probably the first name on the team sheet to partner Bailey will probably be Broadbent. I think he's improving. But then we've also got Robbie Got, who's coming this summer as well at centre midfield. You've also got Clifton, who's got a lot of energy in there as well. So I think we do have options to kind of partner up with Bailey. Maybe Ben Close and Westbrook were a bit of a left field shout.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can have a good pre-season and elevate themselves into that conversation. But I would also imagine that if there are offers for either of them, I think the club would be keen to hear them.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about George Broadbent, because he's certainly probably done enough to put himself, make himself sort of favourite, if you like, to be that partner for Owen Bailey. One thing that strikes me about Broadbent is that he does have that vision into where he can pick out the long range passes actually quite well. But what I would really like to see him is master some of those short range passes and add a kind of a consistency to his passing that I would have liked to have seen a bit more of last season. And I think that's an area of his game that he might need to work on. But he's certainly got the vision for that kind of creative role.
Yeah, I'm smirking a little bit because you've hit the nail on the head. The amount of times last season, not just Broadbent, but sometimes the whole squad, it was contagious sometimes, the passing. There's just a 5-yard, 10-yard simple pass that you'd expect anybody to be able to make, and we didn't put enough on it, or it was just a wayward pass, and you just think it's bread and butter. But then you'd see him ping a 40-50-yard ball to somebody's toe, and it's just like, surely it's easier to make that 5-yard pass. But yeah. I'm with you on that. It'd be nice to see, kind of, especially at League One level, where I think if we do master kind of one touch, small kind of area passing, we'd be able to break through teams, because I think there will be, like I say, I don't think there'll be many teams that will just sit back and do the low block and have 11 men behind the ball. There will be at times. But I think we'll have more opportunity to kind of really use the space and see what we're about as an attacking force.
Yeah, I think that's kind of oddly, although I do have that criticism that I mentioned of Broadbent, I also think there's a possibility that League One might suit him, because you don't have to have necessarily that high volume of passing if you're a bit of an underdog in League One. It's actually sometimes if you can pick out 3 defense splitting passes a game, and you sign Brandon Hanlon, who's quick, Gibson's fairly quick, Molyneux, then that actually might work for you in terms of cutting teams open in transition via those long range passing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got a few players who can find those, so there might be a mix of styles. We did it last season. There were times where we opted for the long ball, and it rewarded us with a couple of goals and got us some opportunities. So yeah, we might end up leaning towards that a little bit in League One as well.
So Robbie Got then, Dan. I think I'm curious to see where he'd play. I think I would think of him as. I mean, he can play as an 8. He can play as a 10. Bags of energy. He's quite a slight, short midfielder, so he's probably not the most physical, but he is very agile, as you can imagine, and he's a pretty sound technical player as well. And I think Marcelo Bielsa once described him as one of the most dynamic footballers I've ever coached. So that show, and yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, but and it doesn't feel like, whereas sometimes for that kind of thing you'd say, oh, they've got their standards have been on the floor since then and they're not the same player. But I don't feel, from sort of studied loosely Robbie Gott's career, I don't think he's done an awful lot wrong in the last 5 or 6 years. It's just weirdly circumstances have just kind of transpired that he's dropped a bit lower. But I don't see a reason why he couldn't resurge under a manager like Brad McCann, who's probably going to maximise his energy and that dynamism. So I do really like the signing of Robbie Gotts.
Yeah, from what I've seen of him, I don't know that much about Robbie, but from the games that when we played Barrow, he stood out as a player that kind of got in and around it. A lot of the ball went through him. So if we can kind of unlock what Bielsa saw in him, then I think we've got a really good player on his hands. And like you say, I think it's not a case of saying it was at this level and then he's gone down to League Two level and his career's on the floor. I think maybe he's just gone to the team that suited him best at that time of his life, and he's performed well. When we signed him, there wasn't a bad word from a Barrow fan on the social media. They were all very very complimentary of him, and I think that's a really good sign, because social media is a bit of a cesspit sometimes, isn't it? And everyone's got an opinion, and they're not scared to share it, no matter how good or bad it is. So to see so much positive feedback about him, it can only be a good thing, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of other sort of players on the periphery of the midfield, you've got Strawn Brown, who's come through the academy, and a lad called Flint as well. Are we expecting non-league loans for one or two of those two next season?
I think so. Yeah. It makes sense to get them some game time, and see if they are capable of kind of putting the Sens up against physical players. But yeah, I can't see them breaking into the first team. Maybe in the Virtu Trophy, they'd probably get some minutes in that. But other than that, I think, without, fingers crossed, there's not many injuries that decimate the squad. I think there's probably enough cover within that midfield three for Sam and Flint to not really get a look in unless they show something special in training.
So we'll hopefully see how they get on in if they go out on loan or play in the Virtue Trophy.
I mean, Sam has broke into the team, not last season. I think it was the season before, when there were a lot of injuries. He played a few games, and there looks to be a bit of potential there. But I can see why they've offered him a contract, like a senior contract. But yeah, I do think they need that loan out just to get that game time. But it does look like there's quite a bit of potential in him. Yeah,
and I think Grant McCann, I think Flint is the right name that I've got here. I think Grant McCann said in April that Flint is ready, or he sort of talked him up quite publicly. So from the sounds of it, I think those two definitely have some long-term potential, but we obviously don't want to expect too much too soon. In terms of the right wing back spot, it's Luke Molyneux's really. That relationship with Jamie Sterry is really important. And just talk me through that wonderful season that he had last year in terms of hitting the big numbers.
Yeah, it was a different level last season. I do feel sorry for Gibson to a certain extent, because he's been getting kind of compared to Molineux, and when Luke's putting them sort of numbers out with assists and goals and performances, it's difficult to live up to them sort of performances. And it just seemed like everything Luke did last season turned into something positive for Donny, be it an assist or a goal. We saw it when he played at Hartlepool. We've seen glimpses of it throughout his couple of years at Donny as well. But yeah, everything last season, you could just see that every time the ball came to him, he had confidence that he could do something with it. Teams were putting 2 or 3 men on him, so it always kind of leaves other players with a bit of space as well. But yeah, it's just an absolute joy to watch, and I'm praying that regardless of any sort of offer that comes in from any team, we say thank you, but no thank you, because we need players like that. We need to build our teams around key players like Luke, and hopefully he is enjoying his football here, and he takes that next step with us.
When's he under contract to, Luke Molineux?
I think he's got another 2 years, so it'd have to be, I think it'd have to be a fairly decent offer, but I think he's 27, 28 now.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, if you sold him next summer, that would have the disadvantage of it only being with 1 year on his contract. But that would be with yourselves, hopefully having established yourselves in League One. Whereas if you sell him this year, you probably get a bigger fee. But but it's also you wouldn't want to lose such an important player at this stage as a newly promoted club. Yeah. What's your sense? Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I think I vaguely remember him talking about when he signed his contract last time that he'd like to kind of leave a legacy a bit like Cops. So I'm hoping that he's kind of ready to remain. I'm going to say remain loyal. There's very little loyalty in football, but I think he's kind of happy here, and he wants to kind of see his career progress and move up the divisions, and Donny move up the divisions with him, a little bit like what Jamie Coppinger did, and then kind of cement himself as a legend at the club. So I think if he's got that mentality, maybe if offers come in, he might not be interested, and he wants to kind of progress with the club. And I don't know. It's a nice thought to have, anyway.
It's I would love it if that was the case, but I also think it's a short career, and sometimes you can't blame people for taking certain opportunities.
No, definitely not.
I wanted to what's your sense of, because his first season under Gary McSheffrey, or it was initially Sheffrey and then Schofield came in, I think. What's your sense on why it was a tough first season for him after a good year at Hartlepool the year before, and then the last 2 seasons it's really clicked? Was it the signing of Jamie Sterry and that partnership? Was it the appointment of Grant McCann? What do you think has kind of been the big difference maker for Luke Molineux?
I think it might be a little bit of everything, and kind of it's all kind of accumulated to start working. I think certainly Sterry coming in does help, because you've got that kind of relationship. You know what each other's doing down that right hand side. I think tactics are a big thing. McCann tends to get really positive results out of wingers. So I think maybe the way that the coaches are working with him, asking him to do certain things in a different way, I think that's improved his game. And maybe just being settled in the environment. The first season you're in a new club, you're surrounded by new people. You've moved house potentially. I think there's a lot of change, and I think sometimes, myself included, probably don't take that into account. We just see footballers playing for 90 minutes, and we question why they're not performing to a certain level that we've seen them play at before. I take Joe Ironside as an example. Last year, I think he had a kid at the start of the season. He's not quite at the numbers. Maybe he's having sleepless nights.
Not getting the sleep. Yeah.
And all we see is playing for 90 minutes and he's not scoring goals, and that's where we leave it. But the people at the end of the day, they could have a lot going on in lives, and I think especially that first season, moving into a new environment and a new city, settling in and stuff, it's got to have an impact on your performance, surely.
Yeah, and I think the best clubs take that into account and treat people as human beings first and footballers second. And I think that's so important.
We're fans and we pay the wage, so they should be performing.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So in terms of that number 10 spot, one of the reasons why I'd maybe think Robbie Got will either play in the number 10 area or it could be a three-man midfield of sorts is I would maybe question whether Joe Sabara, Harry Clifton or Kyle Hurst would be quite at starting League One calibre. So I'm wondering whether it's going to still be Bailey and Broadbent as the two deep midfielders and Gotts as that sort of energetic 10, but maybe with that extra bit of quality.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Sabara came on quite a lot and had a number of minutes in League Two. It looked okay, but is he good enough to make that step? I'm not sure. Again, it might just work for him in League One. League Two might have just been a level that he struggled at. Maybe I don't know. But I do think you're right with that starting three. Clifton again was kind of in and out of the squad last season. Bags of energy, but I think I heard you mention before that he's kind of a Premier League, he's a Premier League player in terms of his athletic ability, but probably a League Two player based on his technical ability. I think he's spot on with that. He gets himself about. He's obviously got ability as a footballer, but it'd be nice to see that balance of athleticism and technical ability. But yeah, I think he's spot on with that midfield three, to be honest.
So on the left wing, Jordan Gibson was the regular starter last season, but you've also now signed Glenn Middleton. Now, forgive me, Dan, I've not had much of a chance to do much digging on Middleton. I don't know if you, as a fan base, have been able to get much intel.
I've not, to be honest. All I'm seeing is that he's given up European football to come to a League One club, which for me,
it's a no-brainer.
We've either sold him a dream or there is true kind of visions of progression and looking at the top end of the table to convince somebody to leave European football. And I mean, Dundee, they're not a bad team in Scotland. They're always kind of up at the upper echelons of the top division there. So yeah, we must have something.
Dundee United rather than Dundee FC.
Yeah.
They are quite good.
Yeah. So to convince a player to come to League One, we must have some sort of vision of top end, kind of looking towards playoffs maybe. But yeah, I'd take mid-table. But for me, he also came with a lot of positive feedback on social media. So the little compilation that they put together, it looks positive, it looks aggressive, it looks like he wants to take a man on, and that's what you need, especially like say in transitions. If you can find him and he's got a bit of pace about him to get in behind, it's key at League One.
Yeah, well, let's hope he can do that. Where do you stand on Jordan Gibson's ability to step up to League One? Because I think he contributed well to last season's achievement, but I would probably put him in a slightly different bracket to Olowu, McGrath, Sterry, Bailey, Molyneux. But probably just one sort of rung below those in terms of those absolute most important players. But do you think he can contribute to a squad in League One, even if we think maybe Middleton might be likely to take that left wing spot?
Yeah, definitely. I think the addition of Middleton it'll have to push Jordan. And I think that's what Grant McCann's wanting. I think he's wanting a couple of players in each position so that there's that competition within the squad, and it'll hopefully bring out the best in every player. Training will be competitive, and then you've got capable players of kind of replacing your kind of standard first 11. But the guys that are going to come in are going to be at a standard that can cover and it not really seem like we're missing an important first team player. I think Gibson's numbers weren't that bad last season. It was just that Molyneux's were at a different level. So I think Gibson is maybe not a key part of the squad, but he is important to the team. And some games it was frustrating. It felt like he'd gone missing. And the way he walks, he just kind of looks kind of disinterested. But there's always that chance that he gets the ball and shifts it and makes something. So yeah, I do think he's an important part of the squad. We'll see if it's Middleton or Gibson who's kind of the first choice, but I'm leaning more towards Middleton. at this
Yeah.
moment in time.
My concern about Gibson is I think in League Two, Jordan Gibson at his best is a top end League Two player. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
But Jordan Gibson, like you mentioned, can also sort of drift through games a little bit and be a little bit anonymous at times. But I think it's a net positive because it's worth it for him at his best. I would just wonder whether Jordan Gibson in League One, his ceiling is reduced and his floor stays the same. So I think the trade-off isn't quite as favourable in League One. So I would see Jordan Gibson possibly becoming an impact sub who can bring that bit of trickery and bring that bit of quality wide play in bursts. But I'm not sure you'd want to be relying on him for 90 minutes in League One.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, I think.
Fair enough. Okay, so centre forward position then, Dan, is Brandon Hanlon, has signed formerly of Wycombe Wanderers, of course. How are you feeling about that addition? Certainly going to give you some pace in attack, which probably be lacking otherwise with Sharp and Ironside being the other options.
Yeah, it's something that was definitely needed. Obviously, Street was relied on at the end of last season for a bit of youth and that energy and that pace in behind. Although Hanlon hasn't got that youth, he still does have that pace. I'm a little concerned about his injury kind of record going into it, but the medical staff say that he's good to go. So you've got to trust the professionals, and if they've done a once over on him and they're willing to take that risk, hopefully we can keep him fit. And I think a fit, firing Brandon Hanlon is a good player at this level. Especially with Sharp and Ironside as backups, they'll all be fighting for game time. I don't think any one of those players will be happy bench warming or not in the squad at all. So I think those three will push each other all the way every single day in training. And I think whatever style or whatever sort of approach Grant McCann's wanting, he's got options there. You've got a target man in Ironside, you've got Brandon who can run in behind, or you've got Sharp who's a fox in the box. So it might be a stage where we're chasing a game and he chucks all three on, but we'll see. I think Brandon will probably be the first choice though to kind of inject that pace in that front line.
Personally, I see Billy Sharp's role being an impact sub because at League One level, you're going to spend more time without the ball, and therefore the engagement from the front needs to be really on point. Now, to be fair, I did see a game at Cheltenham last season where I did think Billy Sharp against the ball, showed a good work ethic. But again, physically, he's limited in how much he can do at this stage of his carear. And I would predict.
I remember he's 40-year-old.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I would expect Brandon Hanlon to be the number 9. My concern would be that if the club get it wrong on the sort of sports science side with Brandon Hanlon, that Sharp and Ironside might struggle to quite make that leap.
It leaves it light, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we'll see whether either of them could step up and how that centre forward position will look. So in terms of additions, then Daniel. I think you're probably going to be looking at a fourth centre half because you've only got 3 senior options at the moment. A fullback on either side. Well, certainly a left back. Possibly competition for Sterry, but that's more of a nice to have rather than a required. I think maybe an understudy to Luke Molyneux because you don't really have that at the moment. And got Robbie Got in the 10. Yeah, so I think you're probably looking at another 4 or 5 additions. Is that what you would think?
Yeah, I think centre back certainly, because we do need a fourth senior option there. I think you're right in terms of a left back. I don't know if Senior and Maxwell are quite capable of making that step up, but the club might just think that they're quite happy with what we've got at both right back and left back. An understudy to Luke Molyneux on the right. I do think we're missing that. I think potentially Charlie Crew coming back from Leeds, and I've heard that we could potentially be in talks with him in the middle potentially. I think that'd be a good loan for Charlie, especially having the season at the time at League Two.
Definitely.
he's not going to break into the Leeds team in the Premier League. But I think a season at League One will really support and help his growth. And it'd be nice to have another option in that centre of the midfield. But yeah, I think if we've not quite got it right on the sports science side, if Brandon does break down, I think up front we are light. So I think we're probably looking at maybe a striker on loan as well.
But then that would necessitate offloading at least maybe an Ironside, perhaps. Yeah.
I've not really heard any rumours of players that are looking to be offloaded other than the younger players. So maybe he's happy with the squad that he's got, but I do think there's a few areas that could have a few extra players in there.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that balancing act, isn't it? Talking to Bradford City last night, and it's that thing where you kind of want to trust the squad that's delivered automatic promotion and say, yeah, let's go again and let's do it. But you also think, actually, if you're in a more analytical frame of mind, you think, oh, actually, for these areas for League One, we might need this, this, and this. So
I think you do need to take the emotion out of it sometimes, especially when you're looking at players and bringing players in. Now, I'm very emotionally attached to Doncaster Rovers, so I'm on the side of the fence that I want to give these players the opportunity and reward them for their efforts last season. But I get where you come from. They paid a wage to deliver, but if they're not quite good enough for the level, then you've got to take that emotion out of it and bring the players in that are going to bring you more success and kind of ride that crest of a wave as a club, even if the personnel might not be the same.
Absolutely. Expectations for this season. You've kind of hinted earlier, Daniel, that for you, survival you'd be more than happy with. I think from a fan base point of view, I'm sure that's true. I think internally, I certainly think, and probably from the board's perspective, I imagine that's true. They'll be happy with survival. But I think Grant McCann, the standards that he sets, the mentality that he has, I don't think he's going to be sitting there saying, we'd be happy to just stay up and keep our heads above water. I think he's going to want to try and attack the league.
100%. I think, me personally, I would snap your hand off for 21st at the minute, but 20th. I wouldn't be happy. Is it 21st survival?
Yeah, no, 4 go down in League One.
No, 20th. Sorry, not 21st. I don't. Oh yeah, we're in League One. I forgot that 4 went down. Yeah, I'd snap your hand off for 20th, but I wouldn't be happy with it. I think it's one of those where I believe that the squad is good enough to push on. If I were to put a number on it, I can see us anywhere between 10th and 15th. But I'm with you on Grant McCann. I don't think he'll be going in there saying we're making up the numbers here and let's just stay in this league. I think he'll be going in there and wanting us to go at teams and get as high as possible. And I think it's going to be a really tight division. I think if a team gets any sort of consistency, they'll be able to kind of break into that top 6. I think there'll be maybe 10 or 12 teams that are probably looking at the division and thinking this is our opportunity to really push on and try and get that top 2. So I think it's going to be a very, very tough League One that I'm looking forward to because there's a lot of local games. But yeah,
so you got Huddersfield, you got Bradford, Barnsley, Rotherham. Some lovely local away days there.
Yeah, it's a very northern heavy division, which I'm quite happy about. There's not many southern teams to travel down to, so yeah, it might end up costing a pretty penny this season. but yeah, in answer to your question, I think as a fan base, kind of a relegation battle we'd all be very disappointed at, but we'd accept survival. But I think we've got to be aiming for mid-table upwards, just because we've got that positivity from promotion.
I mean, you say it costs you a pretty penny, but if you went down to London and wanted to buy a pint, then that probably would.
You've got to remortgage.
Outweigh it. Yeah, exactly. So, as you know, I'm doing my 1 to 24 predictions in late July. And one of my processes for that this year, Dan, is to rate each team out of 10 on 14 different categories that I think are going to determine their fate. So what I'd like you to do is I'll throw a category at you and you give me a number between 1 and 10. How does that sound?
Okay.
First one is ownership.
8.
8 out of 10
Yeah.
for Terry Bramwell.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's positive at the minute.
Infrastructure.
I'll go 6 at the minute. If you'd asked me this time next year, it'd be higher than that because the work will be done on the training ground. But at the minute, improvements can be made.
Okay. Playing budget.
I'd guess that we're not very competitive with some of the division's big hitters. I'd say we're kind of mid-table, so I've got to go with a 5 for that.
5 out of 10 for the playing budget. Management.
Yeah, I'm happy with the management. You can't grumble with the team that we've got. So yeah, that's going to be a 10.
10 out of 10 for Grant McCann. Okay. The goalkeeping department.
Very happy with that. I think Timmy's a great addition. I think Lola is a great kind of support to that. I'll go with 9. Yeah.
9 out of 10 for the goalkeeping department. Faith in Timothy Lochsala there. Defence.
Improvements needed with that. I think we've talked about that. There's obviously the centre back position does need adding in there. So at the minute, because there's improvement, I'll go with 6.
6 out of 10 for the defence. Midfield.
Quite happy with the three main guys. I think if Charlie Crew comes back, that'll improve it. So I think it's better than the defence. So I'm going to go with 7.
7 for the midfield.
Same for attack. I think there's potential for improvement there. I'm hoping that the sports science is right and Hanlon is fit as a flea all season. But yeah, I think on par with the midfield, so we'll go 7 again.
Let's hope he's as much of a nuisance as a flea as well. Squad depth relative to this stage of the window.
Yeah, I think we're okay. Like we've said, there's areas where there is a few gaps, but I think overall I'm fairly comfortable, confident. But yeah, I'd stick with a 7 with that. I think had we had that extra centre back and maybe another player in midfield and another and the understudy for Molyneux, I think that'd increase that score. But yeah, go with 7.
Squad stability. So this is about the synergy and cohesion of the team.
From what I've seen over the summer, I don't think you're going to get a better close-knit squad than Doncaster Rovers. So it's got to be a 10. I think it's a family, it's a friendship, and I think that can sometimes overrule ability to a certain extent and talent within a squad. You can have 11 individuals that you think are going to run away with a league and they don't, or you can have 11 players that are connected in a way that they fight for each other, and that can win you some points. So yeah, I think the squad synergy at Doncaster is fantastic at the minute, and that's credit to Grant and the coaching staff and everybody else around the club. So yeah, it's got to be a 10.
Nice. Growth potential, which is basically the trade-off of players you think are going to be a lot better this season as opposed to last, who are sort of on an upward trajectory, versus players you think they might sort of drop off a little bit.
I think we're going to probably get quite a few players that maintain due to kind of the age and the stage of the career. But I think your likes of McGrath will show improvement. He's got kind of age on his side. I think you'll see improvements in Bobby Faulkner potentially.
Also, it's not a bad surname to have if you're a centre half, McGrath, is it?
No, it's not. But yeah, I think I'll go for kind of a 6 or 7 out of that. I think we've got a lot of players that are probably at their level of progress or development.
That makes sense. Should we go for 6 on growth?
Yeah.
Okay. Team spirit. Again, a high one, this one, I suspect.
Yeah, I think if it's not a positive environment to be in after winning the title, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what else you can add. So I think because of the synergy within the squad and the feeling that I'm getting as a fan looking in on the social media aspects and kind of the content that's coming out on the channel, it's got to be a 10 again, because it just seems like such a close-knit together squad that's fighting for each other.
Great stuff. Fitness. Again, this is an area where I'd score Doncaster quite high in.
Yeah, I'll go 9 rather than 10, but only because I don't know after a summer of partying. I don't know what they're going to be like. But no, joking aside, I think Grant McCann came out and said that kind of they'll be let loose for the summer, but each player had their own sort of fitness regime schedule to stick to over summer. And then when they come back for pre-season, they will be found out if they've not followed it and if they have partied a little bit too hard. So I think fitness will be high on the agenda come pre-season starting.
I'm sure there's some good professionals in there.
Yeah,
quality.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 6. I think there's better squads within League One. Having said that, like I said previously, I think the togetherness will win us some points. You can have quality, but if you're not playing for each other, it makes it more difficult. So I do think there's improvements, but it could be a surprise this season for me. I think last season there were just games that I looked at and thought those teams we should have been putting to the sword and putting to bed, and we just didn't. I haven't got the answers as to why. I look at like Bromley, got beat twice by them. We had about 300 shots at goal and they had 2, and they beat us 1-0 both games. Is that a lack of quality, or is it just the fact that we were just unlucky both of those games? I don't know, and I think that if we have got a lack of quality, it will be shown this season. I don't think we'll get away with quite as much at a level above. But yeah, time will tell on that one. But I'll go conservative with a 6.
6 for now. Okay. Great stuff. So some final quickfire questions just before we wrap up, Dan. What's the biggest reason to believe in Doncaster Rovers right now?
Grant McCann.
Oh, I knew you were going to say Grant McCann. What's the biggest reason for doubt?
It's a good one. Probably just that we're up a level for the first time in a while.
Makes sense. And finally, too early for a prediction, but just give me a sense of the direction you think the season's going. You sort of intimated earlier, sort of around mid-table, you think perhaps?
Yeah, I think solid mid-table. And if there's if the door's left open for a push for playoffs, I think we'll grab it with both hands.
Fingers crossed they can do that. Dan, thank you so much. Best luck with the channel and everything next season. Keep up the great work. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to get subscribed to 18 Dapper. Subscribe as well to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify. That would really help us out. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed this, subscribe. There you go, getting my exits muddled up there. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you again for another Summer Deep Dive very soon.